Well, Keir Starmer on his way out as Prime Minister. But Labour's agenda, pretty sinister when you look at what they're doing in the last days of the Starmer premiership. You can see Labour really going full-on kamikaze in a country that has allowed 200,000 people under both Labour and Conservative governments collectively to cross illegally on small boats. We learn that just 4% of those who have arrived have been removed from the UK, who are here illegally via boat. But once you take Albania out of that, it's actually only 1 out of 100 illegal small boat arrivals since 2018. And this is a country, thanks to ECHR, literally being crippled when you look at the extraordinary cost of people making claims under Article 8 of the ECHR to stop deportation. Yet Labour now coming up with another plan. Rather than sorting out illegal migration, they're looking at new ways for more people to come into the country. I think that's pretty badly out of touch with the public mood when you see their pitiful performance on illegal migration. Meanwhile, when it comes to law and order, well, pretty disturbing this, that you're going to see killers, rapists and sex offenders among the 6,000 criminals to be freed early from prison. So you're looking at a huge number of people here to be released early. Again, the solution here clearly is to build many more prison spaces. And actually, I think we should have far tougher sentences. I think sentences in this country currently are an absolute joke. But just look at how soft we've gone here in terms of early release. It is an absolute disgrace. And then on media censorship, we get a really disturbing development here, that the government want to force social media companies to prioritise what the government call trusted news sources, that the likes of Facebook, YouTube, TikTok would have to make content from the likes of the BBC, ITV and Channel 4 easier to find in users' feeds and searches. Well, what is trusted news and who defines that? Because if you look at the research, broadcast mainstream media in this country is actually never been less trusted than now. You can see in the UK, trust has fallen to 30%, down 20 points in a decade. And yet the government shamelessly pushing this pretty disturbing plan. You can see here plans for prominence of trusted news sources that will require social media companies and video sharing platforms to make sure that news content from public service media, including mainstream media platforms you see there, is prominent and easy to find on their platforms. What the hell has it got to do with the government in terms of manipulating how easy or not it is to find certain media organisations and content? That, I think, is pretty disturbing. And Claire Fox, the superb Claire Fox in the House of Lords, with a speech that I really do think is worth you watching. Please watch this speech from Claire Fox, who delivers a dose of reality in Westminster as to the madness we're now seeing.
One of the final legacy policies bequeathed by Keir Starmer as Prime Minister has been the proposals that the noble Viscount Colville has just mentioned to force major platforms such as Facebook and YouTube to algorithmically boost content from trusted, in inverted commas, public service broadcasters, especially the BBC. The stated reason is fighting disinformation. But as Lord Frost has pointed out, how grotesque is that when public trust in the state broadcaster has taken a battering lately due to documented scandals of fabrication? Where were the BBC fact-checkers when the BBC spliced together two separate parts of a Donald Trump speech to make it appear he told his supporters to march on the Capitol and fight, while cutting the part where he told them to protest peacefully? Rather than a mistake in editing, it appears to have been produced to create a false impression. And what's more, in the BBC's own internal memo prompted by the scandal, it admitted, for example, egregious distortion of coverage of the war in Gaza, such as uncritical airtime regularly given to Hamas propaganda and personnel on BBC Arabic. And it also acknowledged a unit of activist reporters distorting coverage of the gender sex debate to fit a pro-trans ideology agenda. And you really can't get a more obvious example of disinformation than BBC journalists stating as fact that trans women are women in defiance of biology, truth, and now the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, while illiberal regulations are justified as necessary to protect the public from being manipulated by disinformation, lots of solutions involve official manipulation, but for the greater good, so that's okay. It takes an insidious form of nudge units or the Orwellian narrative control techniques. The recent revelations about the role of the Research, Information and Communications Unit based in the Home Office is a chilling case in point. Examples include advice to the police on how to present a wide range of protesters as unsympathetic thugs, or helping shape statements from victims' families to keep the lid on any public rage, however deserved, to horrendous crimes. Or what about narrative control NGOs that receive millions of pounds in public support to influence public opinion through the media? One example is the recent revelation that a racial injustice influencer, was employed to write pro-migration storylines for EastEnders. Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy stressed that TV is a cornerstone of democracy and as such is a key tool in, quote, supporting social cohesion. Well, that's one way to describe the embedding of partisan political viewpoints in broadcasting cultural artefacts. Another might be propaganda. Despite such examples, when politicians discuss disinformation, their target is rarely such dodgy interventions or indeed state misdemeanours and untruths. Instead, the debate often takes the form of self-righteous campaigns against foreign actors manipulating the easily duped masses. As a consequence, it seems there's no problem that allegedly threatens democratic institutions that can't be solved by controlling what ordinary people can see and read or limiting the information the public has access to, often deploying tactics which betray civil liberties and democratic norms, such as censorship or surveillance. This seems driven by managing voters' increasing refusal to unquestionably accept PR about policies as though it's truth. Popular scepticism about, for example, the hidden economic costs of net zero targets, or fury at years of deception by the state about the statistics on mass migration, are met with incredulity. Warwick University's Professor of Philosophy, Quasam Qassam, has written insightfully on this issue, locating the start of this trend back to 2016, as has already been mentioned earlier. The establishment's shock and surprise at the election results that year led to a despairing question. Why and how on earth did millions vote Brexit or Trump? But rather than digging deeper, the standard Liberal answer, Professor Qassam argues, is that those voters voted the wrong way because they were either irrational or victims of misinformation. And this conclusion by elites, Professor Qassam argues, quote, allows them to explain supposedly deviant conduct in a way that doesn't require them to interrogate their own assumptions, while promoting the idea that their own political views are not just true, but self-evidently true, so that only some kind of cognitive failure can explain someone else's failure to share them. Such top-down condescension and complacency has disastrously led to politicians smearing reasonable popular scepticism about official truths. Over recent years, everything from concerns about two-tier policing or farmers' fury at inheritance tax hikes or public outrage at the horrors of the rape grooming gangs, through to local opposition to low-traffic neighbourhoods or ULEZ-style anti-car measures or protest at asylum hotels, all of these and many, many more have been mischaracterised in this House and the other place as being incited by far-right misinformation or populism. Terrible, whipped up by the go-to bogeymen of tech bros, especially Elon Musk. This approach not only avoids the real reason for declining trust, it exacerbates it further.